Am I the asshole for not sharing my final study guide with my classmates and causing them to fail? I'm an English major, but I go to a liberal arts college, so I need to take a science class in order to graduate. I was never a STEM student. After asking around, I was recommended Intro to Chemistry as the lesser of evils. Biology was my original pick, but the professor had a 1/5 on rate my professor and the chem professor had a 5/5. Knowing science isn't my strong suit, I studied very hard with the goal to just pass. The problem was, this class was graded on very few things. Attendance, 20%, a midterm, 40%, and a final, 40%. By the time the midterm had come around, I had created a study guide of around 80 pages. I knew a large group of students primarily in Greek life met to study alongside my roommate. But I was never invited, and when I asked my roommate, she said it was a Greek life thing only. My roommate is in the class with me, but we aren't close. She came back one night while I was working on my study guide. She asked what I was working on and, stupidly, I admitted it was a study guide for the midterm. She asked if I could send over a copy to her to compare notes, and as I was trying to be kind, agreed to do so but asked her to keep it to herself as it was my hard work. Yes, I feel dumb now. I passed my midterm and I was absolutely hyped. The semester continued, but the large group of students started skipping class entirely. The final came up and I created another study guide. 200 pages. Yes, I cry thinking about it. I had a scholarship I needed to keep and I just needed to pass to hold on to it. One time I went to office hours. I was asked by another student if I had the final study guide. When I asked what he was talking about, he mentioned my roommate and said that her roommate, me, had made a midterm study guide that let everyone pass. I basically had inadvertently helped everyone who wasn't paying attention do well because they just memorized my work. I realized in this moment that the reason why students stopped attending class was because they were banking on my final study guide. Also corroborated through conversations with my roommate where she let slip that she didn't need to understand the material, just memorize pre-existing notes. A week before the final exam, my roommate asks me if I could send my final study guide. I straight up told her to her face, nope. As it got closer and closer to the exam, her texts increased. The midterm class average was a 70%. Not bad for Intro to Chemistry. The final? A 17%. I got a 67%, but it got curved up to a 97%. I passed with a B+. My roommate yelled at me as she failed the final and mentioned I caused others to fail and not graduate as well. My roommate said I should have done the right thing just as I did for the midterm exam and hand over the study guide to help others. Am I the asshole for not sharing my final study guide with my classmates and causing them to fail? Edit. Quick responses to your top questions. 1. Why no lab? This is an intro class for non-STEM students only. It's more a concepts class. There's no lab, but there's a lab for the Intro to Chemistry for STEM students. 2. Your roommate is in Greek life but doesn't life in a sorority house? My school doesn't have sorority houses and the housing they do have for Greek is optional. 3. The curving makes no sense? Average was a 17% on the final, top grade was an 80%. The 80% was turned into a 100% and everyone was scaled 20–25%. Yes, this meant a lot of students still failed. Not the asshole. You weren't in a study group together, so you had no agreement to help them. To recap, your roommate was gatekeeping the Greek-only study group but shared your study guide with them? I'm guessing she got something in return for the midterm help. If not directly cash, I bet she got some nice favors. And then she had promised them the final study guide as well. Otherwise they wouldn't have stopped attending class. I bet she looked really bad when she couldn't deliver. Not your monkeys, not your circus. Definitely, not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your classmates are all adults and need to learn to take responsibility. It's not your fault you attended class and was committed to studying and created study guides to better prepare yourself. Guess what? It paid off. Maybe next time, your classmates will learn to study and realize what they are paying all that tuition and other expenses for. Not the asshole. Maybe the rest of them will figure out that freeloading your way through life is a risky proposition. Not the asshole. They caused themselves to fail. You worked hard to study and pass. Not the asshole. Good for you, they all have learned a valuable lesson which hopefully will allow them to succeed later in life. Am I the asshole for not letting my mom enter my home? Hey. I am 16, male and I am in high school. Today, in the afternoon, my mother, who I haven't talked to since I was 11, reappeared on the doorstep of my home with her 5-year-old son. So my mother divorced my father when I was 11 and when my brother was around 18, I guess? After the divorce, my dad got my custody and my mother cut contact, not sure. My dad always denied that she was in contact with him, and she never talked to me again. I would pester my dad again and again about her because I missed her. But my dad did hide the address of where she lived, which was in a city nearby. I found it in his office at my home one afternoon when he was at work. Ever since the divorce, my dad became very absent and absorbed in work, relationships. So one day, I was able to go on a trip with another adult without the knowledge of my brother or dad to travel to where my mom resided, and I was appearing on her doorstep without her knowledge too. So when she saw me, she was happy, nice, introduced me to her newborn son, and then she abandoned me at a park and I had to call the adult who I traveled with to pick me up. I tried being optimistic, but obviously, I was pretty dead. Now she appears on the doorstep. I ask her what she is doing here and why she is here. She is saying she wanted to talk to my dad. I don't know, but a sudden surge of anger consumed me that I just shut the door and ignored the doorbell. My dad called me and yelled at me. My brother too. They both were very mad and wanted me to apologize to her. They said I was being a child, holding a grudge for a small thing she did years ago, and that I needed to make an apology. So am I the asshole? Should I apologize for being in the wrong? Edit number 1. I just realized I omitted one detail. My dad knew nothing about the time I got left at a park. I didn't bother telling him. I felt like it would be a waste because he already doesn't talk to me. I didn't want more distance. Edit number 2. So I found out he was already in contact with her. He just didn't tell me for some stupid unknown reason. He invited her over. That's why she was there. He told me that over lunch. He then said he'd call her over again in a few hours and I'd have to apologize to her. I didn't say anything about it. Some of you asked some questions, so yes, I agree. If this detail of him being in contact with my mother was not revealed to me, then there is probably a lot I wasn't told. I will think about talking to my brother. I also feel like he knows a lot because he was an adult when the divorce happened, so he probably knew. However, he also lives in another city, so that's why he isn't around either. I told my dad about me being abandoned at the park. He said my mom was going through a lot, especially when she just got a new kid, and that's probably why she left me there. He said that wasn't okay, but it was a long time ago and I am okay now, so it doesn't matter anymore. That's probably the longest convo I have had with him in years, hilariously enough. Thank you for the supportive responses. I think my 11-year-old self would have liked them. Not the asshole, but it's also not your house. You don't owe your mom an apology though. It's shitty to abandon your child twice. If she didn't want you to show up on her doorstep, then she should have called your dad like a responsible adult, not abandon you in a park. Your mother abandoning you, twice. It's not a small thing, and what a disturbing take on that. What your mother did to you was awful and you have every right to be angry. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, your family sucks. Not the asshole. That was a reasonable and understandable reaction from you. They said I was being a child, holding a grudge for a small thing she did years ago. Abandoning your child is not a small thing. Doing it twice is not a small thing. You have the bad luck of having two assholes for parents. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for letting my husband kick my sister out of our home after she made me cry? My older sister Maddie has 7 kids. She gave birth to her 7th child only a few days before I gave birth to my only daughter. Maddie and I were always close. She was supportive when I was bullied in high school. She was a shoulder for me to cry on when an OB told me I would never be able to have children biologically. She was there when an ex broke my heart, and she helped me talk through the conversation I had with my husband when we were dating about me not being able to have kids. I was also there for her when she lost her best friend right out of high school, when her husband deployed overseas while he was in the military, when she had her first 4 babies and needed a birthing partner and her husband was overseas, when she needed a place to stay because her home was broken into. We were always very close as sisters, and we were more than that, we were friends. The joy when I learned I was pregnant was quickly erased when I started to have complications, and I spent 99% of the time worried I had gotten so lucky and might not be able to have a healthy baby at the end of my pregnancy. My sister was not really supportive during this time. Our parents were though. They helped out while my husband worked. I had to leave my job because of my complicated pregnancy. They were so excited for me. My parents were babysitting for my sister and her husband when she had her baby. And they waited at the hospital with me when I gave birth to my beautiful daughter. They helped by bringing my husband food and something to drink because he was stressed and worried and needed some support too. I was in the hospital for a week, and when I was released I called my sister and she was short with me. I tried not to let it get to me and focused on my daughter. Then a couple of weeks passed and she showed up. This happened last week. My sister shows up and accuses me of undermining the joy of her child and saying I hogged our parents and wasn't there for her like I always was before. My husband told her to calm down. She told me how our parents did everything to cater to me and how they were coddling me and fawning all over me and my daughter and making a big fuss about her name and showering her with so much stuff when her little one didn't get the same. She told me I waited so long to have a baby and then saddle her with a shitty ass name that everyone will make fun of her for. Then she said I was selfish for getting pregnant when she was pregnant, and I burst into tears. My husband lost it with my sister and told her to leave and not to come back. She was yelling at me asking how I could let him kick her out like that. And ever since she has been texting asking how I could allow him to treat her that way. I'm so upset at how bad our relationship has become. She was always my best friend and now she hates me for something amazing that happened to me. Or maybe for the reaction of others. I'm not even sure anymore. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. She has 7 children. This was your first and there were complications. She was out of line and sounds like a narcissist. Not the asshole. It sounds like your sister was used to having all eyes on her and her children. Now, she's being selfish and jealous about sharing that attention. It's especially awful knowing what a gift your baby is for you. Of course, your parents are excited for and supportive of you and your husband. Your sister should be, too. Not the asshole. Your sister was only there for you because she likes feeling above you. You being in distress makes her feel like she's got it better than you. Now that you have a kid and your parents are paying attention to her, she's mad that she's not getting all the attention. Don't let her emotionally manipulate you by starting shit with your husband. Think about it. If she gets you to leave your husband for disrespecting her, then you will once again be in a worse situation than her, and then she can go back to feeling like she has it better than you. Just go no contact until she apologizes. Beckowie, I promise she will give you an ultimatum trying to make you choose between her and your husband. Sounds like your sister loved having you at her whim, and probably never had any intention of reciprocating. Most people who have kids know the first in a nuclear family is usually a bigger deal than the 7th in the same, especially regarding fertility issues. Congratulations, op. You talk about being there for her the whole time she was having children. Though for your first she couldn't consider you at all, and had the gall to accuse you of being selfish? Not the asshole. Your sister is having some projection issues. Maybe she's had it rough, but that doesn't mean you are being selfish for trying to care about your own family now. Not the asshole. It sounds like she, subconsciously, enjoyed being the sister who could provide your parents with grandchildren. Your being pregnant changed all of that. I'm sorry that this is putting a shadow over what should be a wonderful time in your life. Please just enjoy your daughter and give yourself the space you need.